In the vast halls of Guangzhou's Canton Fair, a sprawling labyrinth of optimism, business cards, and now, silence, there is a haunting tension in the air. The bright lights and glossy booths were once symbols of China's unparalleled ascent as the world's manufacturing powerhouse, but this year, they serve as monuments to a system abruptly choked by economic nationalism, geopolitical brinkmanship, and the brutal cost of protectionist warfare. President Donald Trump's sweeping 145% tariffs on all Chinese imports have detonated like a bomb across tens of thousands of Chinese factories, paralyzing production lines, freezing inventory, and shattering long-established trade relationships. Small and medium-sized businesses, the lifeblood of China's export machine, now find themselves stranded, warehouses overflowing with unsold products and dreams deferred. Lionel Su, who once proudly supplied Walmart with mosquito repellent kits, now stands before shelves stacked with unsellable goods. His tone swings between disbelief and desperation. "This is so hard for us," he says, as though still coming to terms with the fact that half of his company's business has simply evaporated. Like many others, he remains pinned in a state of anxious hope, clinging to the idea that Trump might change his mind. But this is not strategy. It's survival disguised as optimism. And it is a dangerous illusion. This is not just a story about factory floors idled and workers laid off. This is a far-reaching collapse of economic trust between two superpowers that once tethered the global supply chain. The United States and China have entered an era where mutual retaliation has replaced negotiation, where every trade fair feels like a funeral procession for globalization, and where everyday workers, on both sides, are being crushed under the gears of populist agendas. All across the fair, the story is the same. Amy, a vendor of ice cream machines, has halted production entirely. Her products, like Sue's, are boxed and collecting dust. Buyers from the U.S., once the biggest crowd in the room, are mostly absent, and those who remain are either hesitant or searching for unreasonably low prices, exploiting the panic. The ripple effect is staggering. In a fair that spans halls the size of hundreds of football fields, the quiet desperation is deafening. The situation becomes more sinister the further one travels from the glitz of the expo center. In the industrial alleys of Guangdong, the economic fallout is brutal. Workers, once earning enough to support families, now scrounge for daily survival. One factory worker lamented how his wages have fallen from over 300 yuan a day to barely 100, a third of what he once made. Jobs are vanishing. Hours are slashed. For those who had hoped to claw their way out of poverty through manufacturing, the dream is dying fast. And yet, in the face of this collapse, public discussions remain muted. Speaking openly about economic difficulty in China can bring unwanted attention. Workers whisper their concerns, looking over their shoulders. Even the simplest admission, "things are not going well," can carry personal risk. The silence isn't just symbolic, it's enforced. The Chinese government has tried to cushion the blow by encouraging domestic consumption and bolstering internal demand. But that plan is failing. China's middle class, burdened by collapsing property values, job uncertainty, and anemic post-COVID recovery, has retreated into financial caution. They're not spending, they're saving, hoarding what little security they have left. The domestic market, once envisioned as a backup engine, is sputtering. And what's worse, China's reliance on exports is not a historical phase, it is still the engine of its economy. Nearly half of last year's economic growth came from exports. Goldman Sachs estimates that up to 20 million Chinese workers are tied directly to goods bound for the U.S. What happens when those goods stop moving? What happens to the factories? The families? The communities that sprang up around these industries? Meanwhile, Trump's tariffs, while devastating Chinese exporters, will not leave Americans untouched. These trade barriers do not simply punish Chinese producers, they raise the cost of goods for American households. Food mixers, vacuum cleaners, electric ovens, products once bought cheaply from China, will now come with inflated price tags. The working and middle classes in the U.S. will soon find themselves paying more for less, all in the name of economic patriotism that increasingly resembles economic self-harm. Some Chinese businesses are scrambling to pivot. Amy speaks of new markets, Europe, Russia, Saudi Arabia, but these are contingency plans, not solutions. For every company that finds a new buyer, dozens more are left adrift. Others are trying to focus inward. One shoe manufacturer claimed he now sells only to domestic buyers, but even he admits that labor costs and buyer confidence are slipping. Foreign companies have begun shifting operations to Vietnam and Bangladesh, chasing cheaper labor and more stable political climates. China, once the darling of global manufacturing, is being abandoned by the very system it helped build. And looming over all of this is a profound geopolitical uncertainty. There is reportedly little to no contact between Washington and Beijing. Neither side seems ready or willing to back down. The trade war may be only in its early phases. China has vowed to fight until the end, and Trump, emboldened by populist support and political calculations, has made clear he is prepared to keep escalating. This is no longer about tariffs. It's about a broader decoupling of the world's two largest economies, and the consequences will be far more than economic. The collapse of mutual trade dependencies could usher in a more fragmented, unstable world. Alliances will shift. Supply chains will rupture. Innovation will slow. And at the center of it all, small businesses, the real drivers of employment and economic growth, will continue to bleed out quietly while the giants wage their ideological war. The notion that either side can win this trade war is a dangerous fantasy. Both economies are too entangled, and the collateral damage too widespread. What we are witnessing is not strategy, it's slow-motion destruction. And while political leaders gamble with tariffs and national pride, the human cost continues to mount, silently, invisibly, irreversibly.